Thank you for tuning in to Real Sense Now. It's your host, Dawood Bedrosian, and you're tuning into the right show. Here on Real Sense Now, we are here to give you a real sense of the opportunities, the conditions, and of course, some of the challenges that we're facing in our ever-changing real estate industry. Most importantly, here on Real Sense Now, what we aim to do is show you how owning real estate is essentially the cheat code to your success. But today, we're going to be tackling this from a different perspective. It's almost being in the real estate space without actually owning the real estate. And I know you probably think to yourself, what is this guy talking about? But just stay tuned. This is going to be really great. As we see before us, there's one thing that we know for sure. The housing market will always shift and change and bring along tons of opportunities and equal amount of challenges as well too. And I'm often asked the question that you probably get asked all the time. Is now a good time to buy?
Right.
Should I be entering the real estate market? You don't have to take my word for it. There's a reason why I have you on the show.
Yep.
And this is why we invite people that are industry experts, top agents, and talk about the hottest housing market topics and business strategies within this conversation to hopefully educate you and show you a new way of doing things. My guest today is Jamil Damji. He's an internationally renowned real estate investor and entrepreneur whose true passion is to empower others to create generational wealth. I love this guy's story. I love his energy, and you're going to find out why. He's a multi-talented individual, a strong sense of humor, and a determination that has really guided him through a lot of challenging times in his life. Jamil's been in real estate since 2002, where he mastered the art and literally wrote the book on how to wholesale real estate. Sadly, the book hasn't come in the mail. It's supposed to show up today. I wanted to get a signed copy from you, but we're going to need to wait till next time. You've also completed more than 6,000 wholesale and fix and flip deals over the course of your 20-year career.
Yeah.
You're the co-founder of Keegley, which I definitely want to get into as well, a nationally franchised real estate wholesaling outfit, which operates in over 118 markets. Am I right?
Yes.
Wow. And Jamil is also the visionary behind Astro Flipping, one of the most successful communities of real estate wholesalers. There's over 4,000 members within the group that generate tens of millions of dollars in student profits for their group. He's also landed himself on a national television show, and one you should watch because it's a lot of fun. It's A&E's popular show, Triple Digit Flip. I know a lot of you guys are thinking about a 1-digit or a 2-digit flip. I also want to find out what this triple digit flip is all about. What's common thread amongst all of Jamil's endeavors is that he loves to teach people how to invest and how to profit in a strategic and, more importantly, ethical way.
Yes, sir.
I think you like to take a really holistic approach in everything that you do. And this is one of the things that really allows me to stand behind your noble endeavor. And I just want to say I'm honored and privileged to have you as my guest on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much, Dawood. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know what you exude the most when I'm around you is your authentic and genuine willingness to really want to help people. I saw you at your event yesterday.
Yes.
I have to say, unfortunately, we met under unforeseen circumstances.
Yes, yeah, it was a little interesting. I had a really exuberant fan or friend that was so excited to see me that he headbutted me in by accident. In the melee of people that were trying to get a picture, and I was wearing a white sweater last night, which ended up getting blood all over it.
Oh, yeah, because you had a different T-shirt on.
Yes. Then somebody what was really interesting about yesterday's events was that, people are there promoting their businesses, right? And so there's two of my community members have started a lending business with a very unfortunate name.
I saw the name.
Yeah, and so
Can we say what it is?
Well, yeah, I will. I put the T-shirt on and I looked at it and it said DTF Capital.
And I know this is a PG rated show.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna explain what DTF is, but so my wife last night, she was watching my Instagram stories and so she's like, "What's going on? My husband's running around a nightclub with a T-shirt that says DTF on it." But that was the circumstances. But yeah. I mean, they definitely got some free promo out of that. I wonder if they had set the guy up to come and give me the headbutt so I would put their T-shirt on.
You know what?
He was right there. He was right there with a T-shirt as soon as I started to leak. So,
and it's so weird because I was walking up to say hi, and you had this Kleenex with your nose up in there, and I was like, "This is not going to work out." Like, yeah. But anyways, we have a lot in common. I love your shirt. We're from the same country, Canada.
Yes.
And we're both here in Florida right now on site. You just came off a great event and a great conference as well, too. And I know you have some special announcements for our guests as well, too. But before we start, I just wanted to share that, we created this show to really want to also, just like you, give back to our community of listeners who want to learn more about real estate, maybe want to find a way to get in and just don't know how. Mm-hmm. So much of the show is really about entrepreneurship, real estate, and guiding people and showing people how owning real estate is truly the cheat code to generational wealth and success. I know you've struggled a lot to get to where you got to, but I really want to turn the tables and talk about you. This is a classic med school to real estate marvel story that we're going to be talking about here.
Oh, man.
Your journey in real estate is remarkable. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you wanted to study to become a surgeon, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, I did. So, I'm East Indian background, right? And so my parents were very much of the mindset that you got to go to university and you have to have like a professional designation or like become a doctor. Essentially, it was become a doctor or there's no other way to financial freedom for you. And, giving credit to my parents for their perspective at the time, right? It wasn't that they were they were limited in their mind and like what they thought their son could accomplish, because becoming a doctor is very difficult. So they believed enough in me to say, hey, go do that. On the other side of it, though, what ended up happening is when I did really well in my undergrad, I took the exam to get into medical school, and I get an interview to go to medical school. And in that interview, I was too real. I had answered the questions probably a little bit too authentically. And when they asked what was my reasoning for wanting to be a doctor, and I said, I want to be rich.
Probably not a good answer.
Not the good answer, right? And so, I didn't get in.
I don't think being rich is in the Hippocratic Oath, by the way.
No, it's not. And so, I actually didn't belong in the medical profession because that was my intention, right? And so because I didn't have the same kind of mentality, or at the time I hadn't grown the empathy to want to be, in people's lives, to be helpful in a health manner, I ended up becoming an entrepreneur. And, that was really difficult for my family at the time because they saw this incredibly talented young man with the ability to score nearly a 4.0 grade point average and then just giving up after the first rejection, right? Which, in my business now, if I had done that, if I was looking back at me at that time, I would have said, keep trying. But, obviously everything worked out for the best for me. So I'm really happy I'm not a doctor.
I was watching this Indian comedian that said the best joke ever. The kid comes back from school and the teacher goes, ask your parents what pronouns you want to use. And the Indian mom goes, doctor. There's only one pronoun, doctor.
Yeah,
that's it.
100%.
Okay. How did you get into the world of wholesaling? Like, how do you go from doctor to wholesaler?
Well, really by accident. So I ended up first in entrepreneurship, coming onto this company that was struggling. And their business model was selling websites. This was like late 90s, early 2000s, right?
So the internet just started.
Just
basically.
The beginning of the internet, right? So they had this company where they would reach out to business owners and say, you should really take a look at this thing called the internet. People are going to move to advertise there, and it would be a good idea for you to get a website. And so that was my job. Now, they were struggling. The owners of the business were struggling, and I'm always been a really good communicator. And so I come into the company, and within my first day, I ended up selling 7 websites, which was for them what they would do in a week. And so I completed the week, and then I said, okay, guys, I've obviously done something really incredible for the sales here, and we have a cash injection that we've never seen before. I want half the company. If you give me half the company, I'm in, I'll take this thing to the moon with you guys. And they were so happy to bring me on and give me 50% ownership. Now, unfortunately, the problem is that I hadn't been around to understand how they came to the number of $600 for a website. They weren't very good business people, because at the end of the day, it actually cost us $700 to build one of these $600 websites. And so I was so good at my job that very quickly we were out of business. However, it put me in proximity to one of the business partners there, whose father was a developer. They would build these luxury duplexes where they would knock down an old bungalow that had a 50-foot frontage by 120-foot depth, had to be zoned R2 so they could do a duplex. And so they would knock these guys down and build these luxury duplexes. And every time they would make a sale, they'd make $160,000 in profit. And that blew my mind, because as somebody at that time who was really like struggling, you know, I worked at Taco Bell I worked at Taco Bell and a video store to cover my tuition and my living expenses while I was going to college. So this is just my world, right? Like I really was struggling financially at the time. So I tried to get involved in the conversation, and I asked, how can I do something in this? And immediately their response was, well, there's nothing you can really do. You don't have a real estate license, so you can't list our properties. You have no money. Pretty sure you don't have good credit or enough credit to qualify for the kind of loans we need to get for these, $1 million infills. There's no way you can help. And then they carried on talking about how they were stressed out because they couldn't find any more building lots, right? They were just like, that was their limiting factor, not enough lots. So then I asked, well, what do you mean? Like, maybe I can do something there. And immediately they were like, yeah, well, if you can find us one of these lots, we're happy to pay you. Like that would be a great way for you to get involved. Perfect. I leave the office that day. The next morning I'm walking my dog, and I walk by, and it just so happens I live in one of these neighborhoods. I rent a property in one of these neighborhoods where this kind of development is going on. So I'm walking my dog, and I walk by a house that I had actually tried to rent a few months earlier, but it was like $200 out of my budget, so I couldn't afford it. But I called a lady and I said, you're not successful in renting this place. What about selling it? Her answer was, well, if I got the right number, I would absolutely sell it. I asked, well, what would that number be? She says, $350,000. I said, perfect. I'll call you in a little bit. So I run to the office and I talk to my business partner. I say, how much would your dad and you pay for this house? And I give him the address. He looks it up, $400,000 all day. Now I'm in this pickle, right? Because they'll pay $400,000. She wants $350,000. That's a spread of $50,000. How do I do the deal?
Yeah, I know.
So I start calling my family members. I'm like, look, I have this really, really great opportunity to make $50,000. I'll split it with you, but I need money. Can somebody loan me the money to buy this? Now, no offense to my family members, but none of them had that kind of money either, right? Nor would they want to invest or gamble on this, kid who didn't get into medical school, right? Who completely went the opposite direction of what his parents had said. So I wasn't really bankable in my family's eyes, and I couldn't get a loan for it. So I start doing what I used to do to sell websites. I went into the phone book and I started calling real estate attorneys. And I got all the way to the letter S. I started at A. And at the end of the day, I was at the letter S. And an attorney who was so fresh out of law school, he didn't have a secretary to answer his phone, picked up. His name was David Steed. David Steed gave me a very simple way to do the deal. He said, we call this kind of transaction a skip transfer. That's what he calls it, right?
So a skip transfer. In Canada,
yeah. And so I'm like, okay, well, how do you do a skip transfer? He's like, very easy. You're going to have two contracts. You're going to have one contract where you purchase the property, but you have to make sure that your contract reads your name and or assignee.
Correct.
And then you'll have a second contract where you're going to sell the property. And once you fill those things out, these are the things that you need to make sure. The closing date has to be the same day. Okay? All of the terms and conditions have to line up. They have to essentially be identical contracts except for where your name is on the line, right? And so looking at that, getting these people to sign these two documents, I then rushed the contracts over to the attorney's office, and no joke, 2.5 weeks later, there was a $47,000. After his fees, I made $47,000. I was so scared to spend that money that I actually had that bank draft in my wallet for 3.5, 4 months. Until someone was like, dude, this is going to expire.
You need to cash this in.
And you have a couple months before you cash this thing, or you'll have to go back and get it reissued, which I don't know if you really want to do. So that was it. That's how I got into wholesaling. And as soon as I figured out this business model, I never turned around, right? I just kept going. And so that ended up becoming how I earned. I went on to sell dozens of houses, making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then I got involved in apartment buildings because I thought, okay, well, it seems to me that anywhere that there's an opportunity to add value to something where there's some potential, I can
do it.
I can do this, right? So then I started driving around talking to developers who were converting apartment buildings into condominiums,
which was so big over here just before the market crashed.
All over. It's that's been something that they do all over the United States and Canada, and I could make $100,000 on flipping an apartment building very easily because those developers, they had no problem paying me the fee. They're like, yes, we'd be paying this in commissions anyways. So if you can get them off market. And you can get them directly from the homeowner or the apartment owner.
It's good for everybody.
It's great for everybody. We're happy to pay you your fee. And so I got really good. And I started making millions of dollars. And then that's where the problem happened. Because you talk about owning real estate as the mechanism to building wealth. Well, owning real estate is what made me broke. Owning real estate, not transacting on real estate. Owning real estate actually made me broke. Because I think... well, that's where leverage and timing became the issue. So I've made millions of dollars at this point. The guy who I'm selling an apartment building to comes and pulls up in a Rolls Royce one day. And I'm young. I'm in my 20s. I see this guy in a Rolls Royce and I'm like, wow, how do I do that? I want a car like that. And it really messed with my mind because I thought, okay, well, whatever I'm doing right now is not enough. It's like, I got to be that guy. So the next 4 buildings that I found, I didn't sell them.
You kept them for yourself.
Well, I wanted to do the project. So I go and I talk to my mom and dad, my sister, and I'm like, guys, we're going to buy these 4 buildings and we're going to renovate them and we're going to be rich and I'm going to have a Rolls Royce. Don't worry. This is going to go really well.
At this point in time, you're the golden child.
100%. Okay. I bought mom and dad a house on the lake. For Mother's Day, my sister and I went to my parents' home and said, get in the car and we're going for a drive.
That's amazing.
We drove them to their new house, which had we outfitted their closets with brand new clothes.
That's amazing.
We said, we're not even going back. We're not even going back.
I love that.
You're here now. This is your life now. This is where you live now. And I bought myself this beautiful house on the hill in Calgary. It overlooked the whole city. I was so happy about myself, right? And that disappeared in an instant. The timing in which I bought these 4 buildings was the end of 2007. And we all know what happened in 2008. And the way that the banking system works in Canada is very different from the United States. Canada is a social democracy, right? What does a social democracy really mean? It's socialist, right? And so the way that the banks are protected by the government is insane. In Canada, you can't even get a 30-year mortgage. Every mortgage resets in 5 years.
In 5 years, yeah.
You can't.
So I deal with a lot of Canadian investors, and that's one of the things that blow them away.
Right.
No prepayment penalty for a lot of the loans that they're getting in the US.
Right.
Plus that you can lock them in for
30 years.
30, 15, 20 years. Whatever.
It's insane, right? And this is what I'm dealing with. As soon as the credit crunch happens, the lending institution reaches out to me and says, hey, I know we've given you the money already to purchase these buildings and start construction. And how they financed me was the following. They would say, pre-sell 50% of the building on the outside, like when they're completed, and we'll give you the financing to do the construction. Mm-hmm. Perfect, right? So then all I have to do is set up a sales center and sell 50% of the building, which was so easy at that time, right? So I sell 50% of the building. I got deposits and I got contracts in hand. The bank gives me the loan. They now say, we need to requalify all of the people that are pre-buying your properties because our lending standards have changed. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. They're like, don't worry about it. It's just a formality. So everybody goes in to requalify and nobody requalifies. So they reach back out to me and say,
there's a stress test too in Canada that they don't have here as much, I think.
I'm not sure, but like again, to be mid deal for them to change the terms like that was really crazy. So they ended up calling the notes. There was no way for me to get out of these deals, and so here I am. I've lost millions.
2008 big market crash, turning point for you. I have to ask, how did you and your family navigate through these turbulent waters? But before I get you to finish the sentence, everybody loves a great comeback story. And you, my friend, are the comeback king. You had massive struggles. You took some time off, only to hail as the wholesale king eventually. How did you do that?
Well, I didn't do it right away. So, once everything kind of shook out and we got to the bottom, I looked around at the carnage, right? And I had not only bankrupted myself, but I ended up bankrupting my family because they all co-signed on those loans. I didn't only lose my home, but I lost the house on the lake that I bought my mom. And so now we have to regroup. So my mother, my father, my sister, my niece, our 150-pound dog, and our cat all move into a 2-bed, 1-bath apartment. And it's just like, what are we doing here? How did this happen? And it was terrible, right? I felt responsible for it. And I know that my parents and my sister at some level knew I was responsible for it. But the beauty of family is that nobody pointed their finger at me and said, you ruined us. They never did that. In fact, what they would say is, as long as we're together, it doesn't matter. We're always going to be okay.
That's all you need.
Right?
And you need that certain amount of trauma to catapult you to the next level.
Of course.
And I think you need these experiences because I believe I heard you say this because I've experienced this in my own life. When I first made my first bit of money, I didn't know how to keep it.
Yeah.
I got rid of it as fast as it came in.
Right.
And thank God I have not had the opportunity to accumulate a certain level of wealth till I was actually mature enough to be able to know how to grow it.
Right.
And I think everybody needs that kind of hardship in order to appreciate, be grateful 100%. For it, and catapult really to the next level.
I mean, dude, I had $1 million in cars at that time. But again, what do you expect for a kid in his 20s to become a millionaire, right? I mean, all of my choices were bad. Who I dated was terrible. My friends were terrible. My spending habits were terrible. Everything sucked, right?
You feel like you're untouchable at the time, right?
Yeah, you're young, right? You're invincible, untouchable. Nothing can go wrong. You're super optimistic. It's just a complete. You get blindsided by reality when it hits, right? And so here we were in this apartment, struggling. And I end up writing a pilot because I have nothing to do. And I've always kind of been a funny person, right? And
if I didn't know better, I would have thought you were a comedian.
Well, this is what happens, right? So I end up selling a pilot, and the show never gets made. They do this a lot in Hollywood, weird stuff. They option things, and then they do it so that it doesn't get made because they have something similar that could be coming out. And so I didn't know this. I thought, hey, if somebody options your script, you're gonna be famous, and you're gonna be like the next, Kevin Hart. So I move, right? I tell my family, I'm like, I got to go to LA. I got to live in LA, and I got to pursue this comedy thing because I'm good. Look at this. Well, the pilot gets optioned. Nothing happens with it, and then I come to reality that maybe I'm not that funny, right? Maybe I got to work on this, and so I start going to comedy school, which is a thing. There's a great training.
What year is this?
This is in 2009 now. 2009, 2010, and I start attending a comedy school called the Upright Citizens Brigade, which is phenomenal place for improvisation and sketch comedy. And I go through the whole program, and now I can consider myself funny. I know how to make a smart joke, not a D joke. You know what I mean? Which is like, I think for the most part, what most people do is like when you're trying to be funny, you're like, you typically go to like very blue topics, like, sex or, just dumb stuff. It's not smart. It's that there's always a smarter way to play a thing. Right. So I learned this. I learned how to be smart funny, but it's not paying the bills. Right. Because you're not really making money in comedy until you're Kevin Hart.
Yep.
Right? Everybody behind him is broke.
And I think at that point in time, if you had that hit show, you would have probably been like the second most famous Indian American Canadian after
Russell
Peters. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Russell Peters. He's still one of my favorite comedians. Dave Chappelle's first, and then I'll give Russell, top 5 for sure.
I would agree with that. Especially his first stand-up show was probably the best of all time.
Phenomenal. And like old Eddie Murphy's in there in the top 5 too. Not new Eddie Murphy, but old Eddie Murphy, Delirious and whatnot, right? So
and Raw.
But here I am, in comedy, trying to make it. It's not working. I'm making some money, but not enough. My sister, on the other hand, she rolled up her sleeves and she got to work in Canada. So we had actually purchased a couple of apartment buildings in the worst neighborhood in all of Regina, Saskatchewan for my dad as a birthday.
Why did you go to Regina? There's like nothing in Regina. It's like prairie country.
We bought them as a joke. Okay. It was like a comedy thing. Like we were laughing about it. We're like, Dad, look, happy birthday. We bought you the 2 worst buildings in the 2 worst neighborhoods of Canada. Like my sister and I were laughing about it, right? Well, that joke ended up saving our ass.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because she goes to those buildings and said, this is all we have now. And because we had purchased them from my father in a company in Saskatchewan, which had a completely different LLC, they were untouchable assets. So there was a completely different entity. They weren't subject to any of the default judgments that we were starting to accumulate under our LLCs and our names, right? And so my sister goes and she starts working on the buildings. And one by one, she starts completing these units and then putting in what in Canada, it's our version of Section 8. She starts filling them up with government housing. Government housing. And, the government always overpays, right? Probably to the tune of like 130% of what the actual market rent is. And they pay on time, right? It's you never get the song and dance of where's rent. The checks come in the mail. And so she ends up taking those 2 buildings and turning them into $1 million, which was incredible. So my sister saves the day, right? And now we have some money to play with, and I'm like, okay, well, $1 million's not a lot, but it's a good start. So then I start looking at where in the United States could $1 million go really far. And just so happens that Phoenix, where it's not too far away from where I'm living in LA, a 5-hour drive, right, is ripe for this kind of opportunity because you can buy at that time, you could buy apartments or condominiums that had once sold for $400,000 for like $25,000.
I was about to say, same thing
right?
in our market.
Yeah. Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Right. So,
and everybody's still waiting for that day to happen again.
It's not coming. But I'm also seeing that you can rent these same units for $800. You tell me where I can buy something for $25,000 and that will cash flow $800 a month. Those returns are there. Yeah. If I went and presented that to somebody right now, they'd say, "Oh, that's a scam."
Yep.
Because those returns were that good.
So that's exactly what we did. So when the market crashed, we actually took these fractured condos, took them to a bunch of investors. At that time, Canadians were the only ones that were walking around with about $150,000 in cash that could go out and buy these properties. Correct. And they would buy them outright cash for $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $100,000. And I think the first go around, they sold 43 units in one night to a bunch of investors over there. So very similar story.
And it just so happens that I'm Canadian and I have a lot of Canadian friends that would still want to buy that kind of thing, right? So I start writing contracts on, for like short sales and other things to purchase. And
why do we have a parallel story? I feel like that's all I did for 2 years, write but contracts.
Remember when you were in the short sale game, you would write 20 contracts and 2 would get approved. So you're overwriting, right? Like you're writing on everything because you
actually, when they got approved, we didn't even know which ones they were. The investors would say, "Did you go and see them?" We're like, "No."
Yeah, but the bank would have, and it was a slow process of approving them anyway. So you never really knew when they were going to come up. So it happens that the $1 million that my sister made, we place, and then all of a sudden we get approved on 2 units, and I don't know what to do with them. Right. So I do what I knew how to do. I went to Craigslist and I write an ad and I said, "Hey, I've got these 2 approved short sales. I have 2 contracts on approved short sales available if you want to buy these." And I put them out and I marked each one up like 10,000. Within a couple of minutes, I get a phone call, and a guy named Tim Wynn in Phoenix, Arizona, calls me up and says, "What's the address?" Says, "I'm going to go look." He goes and looks. 20 minutes later, calls me back. He says, "I'll take them, but give me $1,000 off each." I'm like, "Cool." So I, at that moment, realized, I'm like, bro, I just made $18,000 like this, and I've been over here in LA, like
trying to figure
dying
this out.
to try to make this kind of money, right? Nothing is working for me. And so here I have this situation. I had just asked my wife to marry me. She's got a daughter. I have a daughter from a previous relationship in Canada. And my fiance is soon to be moving to the United States, where I have to get married within 90 days because she's Canadian, right? So like we had to do this. We had to do it the whole 90-day fiance fiasco. But I'm like, I'm a loser. Like I can't. What am I doing bringing this woman and her child over here when I can't support myself, right? So I make this decision that I'm not going to remain in LA. So on my birthday, it was December 12th, 2012, 12/12/12. I'm in a U-Haul driving to Phoenix, Arizona. Tears, bro. I was crying the whole drive because I was so sorry for myself that I was giving up on my dreams of being famous and rich, right?
God has a plan, man.
You know, it's really crazy, right? So I get to Phoenix, and immediately things start clicking for me. I'm starting to make money, like, you know, decent money. Not enough where I'm like balling, but decent money where I actually start making good on my debts from Canada. Because I was $1.8 million in the hole.
Yeah.
I pay it off. I paid it off, bro. I never actually hit the bankruptcy button in Canada. I just ran away, and then I came back and made it good, right? And so I pay off the bills, and all of a sudden I'm like, man, I made over $1 million. Like I can do this, right? So Natalie and I, you know, there was a moment, dude. There was a moment because I was putting all this money away that I had really didn't have a ton. And my wife ends up getting this super bug called C. diff. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's terrible, right?
Can kill you, no?
It can, yeah. And so she's literally on her deathbed, and we find out that it's C. diff, and that the cost of the prescription that she needs is $6,000.
Jesus.
And I don't have it, right? I didn't know this was going to happen, so I wasn't saving. I was putting all the money into the debt. And she needs it now, right? So it was a Sunday. I get on my computer and I start scouring the MLS for deals, and I find one in South Scottsdale, a good price. I lock it up. That same day, I start looking for a buyer, right? And I call a guy named Chris Iman, and he's a big wholesaler in Phoenix, and he likes the deal. So he says he'll take it. And there's a $10,000 markup on it. So I'm like, amazing. I'm about to make 10 grand, but I'm not getting it for 2 weeks.
Oh.
Because it's close, and she needs it now, right? Yeah. So I call him up and I say, look, I know you don't know me, but I'm going to make you an offer. I'm supposed to make $10,000 on this. That's how much I marked up the deal. I'll take it. I'll take 6.
But I need it today.
But if you can give it to me today. I'm like, look, if I rip you off, go around town, tell everybody that I'm the worst person that you've ever met, right? But if I make good on this, you'll save $4,000 and you'll trust me moving forward. And he's like, you know what? I'll take that. I'll take that deal. Let's see who you are. So gives me the $6,000. Obviously the deal closed. Everything went fine for him. So he made, he ended up flipping that house. And so he saved $4,000, give me the money. I took that $6,000, went and bought the prescription. And that's the day that I realized that I can do anything I want, really, if I just sit down and put it together, right? And I didn't look back again. So I start wholesaling actively now. I'm starting to really catch my stride. I get to a point where I'm doing dozens of deals a month. I start getting a reputation in town. And all of a sudden I get approached by these 2 young guys who said, hey, we really want to work with you. But I'm working with this Chris Iman guy at the time, right? And like we're not in a company together, but we're loosely just doing a lot of business.
Together,
yeah. But Chris, on the other hand, he's an older guy, and he's in the stage of his life where he just wants to be on a boat, right?
Oh, okay.
And so
he's a financial partner at this point in time.
Yeah, he's he's helping me sell my deals. I'm finding the deals, he's selling the deals, right? So one day I call him and he puts me to voicemail, and I call his brother up and I'm like, hey, have you seen Chris? And he's like, he didn't tell you? He's in the Bahamas. I'm like, oh my goodness. I've got like 2 deals that need to get sold right now. He's like, sorry, bro. And this kind of had happened a few times and it was frustrating me, right? So I call these 2 young cats up and I'm like, okay, your lucky day is here. Chris is on a yacht. So here's an address. Do your best. They're like, thanks. Half an hour later, they sell it. And I'm like, okay, cool. Here's another one. Half an hour later, they sell that one too. I'm like, this is incredible, right? These 2 guys are really good.
I think I'm in the wrong business.
Well, you probably are. So we start working together a little bit more, and then all of a sudden, I take this idea to Chris, and I said, look, I want to build a company where we do what we do, but nationally. I want to do a deal in every major market across the United States. And Chris, I think hearing that, just was not into it. He just said, dude, I don't think that's really something for me. I wish you luck, but that's not my dream. I'm really happy with the way things are going, and I like the stability and the ease of my life right now. I like to take off and go yachting or whatever. So how are you going to build a big business like that? So he rejects it, and I go to the 2 young guys, and I'm like, okay, well, here's my idea. I want to build a national company where we sell deals everywhere. And they're like, okay, cool. Well, when do we start? So that's where Keegley comes from, right? And, at the time it was a risk for me because Hunter, one of my business partners, was 17. And Josiah, my other business partner, was like 20. So they're young, right? And I'm in my 30s. And I I'm like, these are kids. But bro, it was the best thing that ever happened because these kids, they had such knowledge about technology. They were so good at understanding how to scale things. They were really talented at the internet and how to leverage,
and those are
email.
all the skills that you need today.
Of course.
The old ways of doing things just simply don't
100%.
work. And in your business, there's lots of people that spend thousands upon thousands of dollars in marketing. I get cold calls from all kinds of people.
Yeah.
You have a system that works.
It does.
And not only do you have a system, you've actually created a platform to help people start and scale their real estate business with proven, straightforward, easy to implement strategies with constructive resources that are available at their fingertips. Talk to us about your other business, Astro Flipping.
Well, Astro Flipping came as a result of, it's two things, right? So we start selling franchises, and all of a sudden they're going, right? People are like, yeah, we love it. We love this Jamil guy. We love the model. This is great. Then all of a sudden I'm like, well, it'd be really neat if I could help feed them deals. Well, how am I going to do that? Oh, I know. I'm going to train America. I'm going to go and figure out I'll train thousands of people to go and curate and find opportunities and just hand them over to my franchises. They'll make money together and I'll make money on this and I'll make money teaching them how to train, how to do it. And that's exactly what happened. So Astro Flipping, it's the way that I did wholesale, right? Which was different from the standard and normal approach of spend a bunch of money on direct mail or pay-per-click or cold calling,
or
harass
those horrible
people.
Corrugated signs.
Or the bandit signs on the street that litter the neighborhoods, right? Like that was really what people were doing. And that was a very transactional approach to the business, right? So I thought, well, there's got to be a better way. Why aren't we making relationships with people? Well, the answer people was saying is that, well, how do you make a relationship with a homeowner who only has one house to sell? I'm not going to do business with this homeowner again. But I can do business with a real estate agent over and over and over again. And I can do business with a buyer over and over and over again. So why don't I go and make my business relationship-based, where I expand my network to real estate agents and I help agents, not on every house, right? I'm only appropriate in specific situations. I'm appropriate when the house has distress in its condition and the people who own it don't have the money to repair it or the desire to repair it. I'm also the option when somebody needs to sell something fast. They need liquidity now.
Today.
Right?
Not
for whatever
now, right
reason.
now.
Yeah, for whatever reason People say, well, who in their right mind would ever sell you a house at a discount? And my answer to that is I'm not asking for a discount. I'm paying 100% of as is value. What I can make this isn't your business.
No, exactly.
Because that's going to require an investment risk. It's not your job, or neither is it your money if I have to invest to force appreciation. So that's just it. I give people the best price that I can give for a distressed asset. And then I take that control, because I control the distressed asset when I have a contract on it. And now I can do whatever I want. Now I could fix and flip it. I could fix it and hold it and rent it out. Or I could do
a wholesale.
What I love doing, which is just sell the opportunity to somebody else. And that's what wholesaling essentially is. It's finding and selling potential. That's it. If you know how to find potential, and I'm sure anyone who's listening to this right now, you probably have a house on your neighborhood, on your block, in fact, where the mail's starting to pile up, where it doesn't look like they've been mowing the lawn or like taking care of the landscaping. And they're quite possibly like hoarders or maybe even squatters living in there.
So true.
It's not safe for the neighborhood. You probably wouldn't want your kid to be playing in the backyard. That house, right? Everybody knows what that house is. Everyone has a house like that in their area. Well, that's the house I buy. So there's a huge lift to the community when I am able to do this deal, because now someone's going to come in and actually make the house beautiful again.
And live in it.
And live in it. And that's going to increase the property values for everybody in the neighborhood. So, for people who have an opinion about wholesaling that's negative, my answer to that is you probably did business with somebody who didn't understand how to do it ethically, which is why I am so passionate about honesty, transparency,
And those are the virtues that you teach in your community as
yes,
well too. I saw it yesterday
yes.
when you were on stage as well too.
1000%, bro, because you get what you put out there in the world.
Can I tell you a story?
Yeah.
You touched on something so beautiful. I keep saying this over and over again on the show. We live in a relational economy,
yep.
Okay, where the currency is not money, it's relationships.
Yep.
Because it is exactly the reason why you're sitting in this chair today. Because of a relationship, reaching out, social media, being able to reach out and say, Jamil, I love your content, really want you to be on my show, and I think you're going to add a lot of value. You're able to near people today more than any other time in history.
Yes, sir.
And you're able to rub shoulders with people that could just take a liking towards you, and you give the same opportunity like you did to the 17-year-old, 20-year-old that now are your business partners.
Sure.
But in doing so, you're actually teaching your community or people that are listening the importance of relationship building.
Yes.
Because it's not transactional.
Correct.
It's about building that relationship that can foster and allow things to grow over and over again. During COVID, I didn't know what to do with myself.
Right.
I didn't realize that I was an essential worker till about a week or two into it. And then when I found out that I was an essential worker, I was going to the supermarket for any excuse whatsoever just to get out of the house.
Yeah.
And this hedge fund would keep calling me all the time, asking me for distressed homes. They didn't want properties that were on the market. They wanted off-market properties. And guess what I ended up doing? Unbeknownst to what I typically do, which is traditional real estate or selling investment properties or whatever, I got into wholesaling. And how did I get into wholesaling? I knew a guy,
right,
who I did a lot of deals with, who allowed me the opportunity, because we worked in transparency, and said, hey, this is what this deal is costing me. If you add on X amount of dollars,
you can sell it.
You can go and sell it.
Right.
The hedge fund company had a threshold on where they could buy.
Right.
And they were getting a little sticky at the time because they had lots of options, because a lot of people were in dire straits at that point in time.
Right.
And were handpicking or cherry picking all of their deals. Guess what? I sat at home. I would probably say half of the properties I didn't even go and see myself. And I was able to, quote unquote, flip the paper and make a decent living through an unforeseen circumstance where we didn't know what the end of future is.
Right.
But listen, there's so many things that I want to get into with you, because you've touched on the most important thing, the importance of building a relationship. In your business, it's important to have a buyer list. And cold calling, I can tell you how many people that send me annoying text messages every single day.
Probably my fault, by the way.
Probably.
Yeah.
But I like your way of doing things, because
Yeah.
I've seen you do a cold call. I've seen the humanity that you share when you're talking to people. And more importantly, how you managed to really take your business up to this point in time. You work with a lot of young people. I guess the question everybody probably wants to ask right now, because every other video on YouTube is about this. Have you started to incorporate AI technologies into running your business?
Yeah, we have. So interestingly enough, right? You're talking about getting annoying text messages. You're a real estate agent, I presume. And so, my job or the success in wholesale for the way that I teach it is it requires you to reach out to X number of agents every day, right? I would say that if you could have 50 quality conversations with a real estate agent every single day, some of those are going to be new outreach and some of them are going to be follow-up, okay? Right. That you will, within 90 days, if you do that every day and track your numbers and make sure that you're following up 2 weeks, at least a week to 2 weeks after your initial contact, and then follow up every 2 weeks thereafter, that you will build within 90 days a business that can do 3 to 5 deals a month at about $10,000 to $15,000 a deal, right? Well, do the math on that, right? That's like $30,000 to $50,000 in income a month. And I don't know about whoever's listening in to this right now, but that's good money.
That's great money.
That's right. And so that's life-changing kind of money. And so that's what we do, right? I'm teaching people how to do this. And because most people have a W-2 job, they really don't have the time to send these text messages and to make these phone calls all day long because they've got a job. So we're using AI technology right now in a way where we've built a platform. Bro, it's so crazy. Another 17-year-old actually developed it. And I get a call from a woman named Marilyn Savage in the Astro community and says to me, Jamil, you need to do this. You need to get on a plane. You need to go sit down with this young man, Andy Wrong, and his parents, and you need to find out how much you need to give him to buy the system that he just built. And I'm like, why? Well, she said, this thing is incredible. I'm not joking you. She's like in her like late 60s. She says, I can use it. It's not that it's easy, yeah. But it's like once you understand what you're doing, it's, really easy. But she's like, this thing is so incredible that within a few weeks of having it, I've already done 2 deals. And I said, okay, beautiful. She's like, it's just taking everything that you teach and automating it. So I called the kid up, right? And I'm like, Andy, we got to talk. And he's scared at this point, right? Because he's like, what did I do? Oh no. And I'm like, hey, tell me about this thing. What do you have going on here? Show it to me. And he shows it to me. And I'm like, why did you make this? He says, well, I'm in high school, dude. I can't leave my class to go and make phone calls or call agents or text agents. So I built this thing where if I just tell it the number of initiations it needs to make every day, he says his number is 250 initiations, and that will typically respond to having anywhere between 50 to 70 quality text conversations in a day. But guess what? He's not having them.
Yeah. It's just a bot that's
the bot is doing it, and it understands the way I speak because he programmed the bot to talk like me, to respond like me, and there's only a few things that real estate agents will say to you when you reach out with this kind of message, right? And so he builds a business where he's making $50,000 a month. Bro, this kid's auntie, I'm in Houston at an event, and this Asian lady walks up, she cuts the line. She didn't care about waiting in any line. She cuts the line, she comes and she pokes me. Why you give him money? I'm like, what are you talking about? She thought I was like some kind of a creep.
Oh, really?
Because her nephew had like 50 grand in a bank and had just made that kind of money the month prior. And she's like, who is this old dude sending? And it wasn't me sending him money. He was doing business. And so she said, after she looked around and she saw, wow, there's like a few hundred people here to take pictures with you and have you like, oh, you're a big deal maybe. So she clued in, okay, that, okay, this is not a weirdo. He's not a pedophile. He's just somebody that's teaching people things, right? So she makes me promise her that Andy finishes high school. She says, you make sure he finishes high school, then he can do anything. And I said, okay, cool. So he finishes high school. He's now my business partner.
I love it. I love these stories.
Right. And so we are out. I promote the product. I, of course, don't take credit for it because I didn't build it.
Yeah.
He built it, but I can market. I'm a promoter, and I believe in it because I see it working. Right.
Absolutely.
And so it's called the Astro Blaster. If anyone is thinking about getting involved in wholesaling, you can look it up. Go to my YouTube channel and just watch a video on what it's all about.
So on that note, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way to reach you? Because I can tell you guys, there is no shortage of YouTube videos or Instagram posts about the magic this man does in wholesaling. So what's the best way to get a hold of you?
The best way to get a hold of me is send me a DM on Instagram, because I respond to those, and I have a team in there responding to those as well. And if there's a message that needs to get to me, my team will get it to me.
Got it.
That's how we met, right?
That's how we met.
Is Instagram.
And that's Jamil Damji, JamilDamji.
Correct, yeah. Or if you're on Instagram, just at JDAMJI, at JDamji.
Okay, let's kind of kick up some gears here. I want to go into a little bit kind of like a rapid fire around. I have so much to cover with you. On your YouTube channel, Instagram page, you share tons of tips and tricks for success. Can you highlight some of the most valuable advice you can offer our audience or young entrepreneurs wanting to get started?
The most valuable advice that I can give anybody is stop gassing yourself up thinking you're doing stuff when you're not. Take action.
Amen.
Right? Because at the end of the day, there's two kinds of people. There are people who they'll like have an idea that, oh my God, I should do something. I should go and do this. I have a sense in me that deserve more. I deserve more than what I'm getting right now out of life. And then you take action towards that. And then there's people who maybe have that, but they've buried it down so far underneath their regular lives that they just said, it's okay. I'm not going to do it.
Which brings me to my second point.
Yeah.
What I've come to realize, which is equally important to taking action, is doing the work on yourself.
Yes.
So mindset development.
100%.
I was very impressed that we actually share the same mentor. Somebody I listen to every single morning, or at least try to anyways, which is Joe Dispenza.
Love the guy.
Do like the meditation. I know that purple space between the space. You know what I'm talking about? And it's been transformational. Developing the right mindset is crucial for achieving any kind of success.
Yes.
What are some of the mindset strategies that you teach that actually help people achieve their dreams?
Yeah, great question. So, I'm a huge proponent of meditation, and this is why, right? So you remember back that time when I was telling you about my wife and the whole, we were on the, like, we were making money, but we were still poor. Like our bed was still on the floor poor, right? Like that was kind of the deal. And so, at that time, right? Like I was struggling with some addictions because life wasn't great, and I had that car accident, and so I had broken my neck in a car accident. It was like I had found myself in a situation where I was addicted to alcohol and opiates, and
not a good combination, my friend.
No, not at all. And really deadly combination actually. And so I keep reading about people dying all the time, and it's so difficult out of that. I read a book called "You Are a Badass" by Jen Sincero.
I gotta read that one. I haven't read that one yet.
I mean, it's okay, but she says something in the book that interested me. She said, "I don't know how or why it works, but every person that I know that's successful and rich meditates. I don't understand the mechanisms behind its usefulness, and I don't know if it's just because you're maybe seeing more opportunities, or maybe because you're quieting your mind that you can see and hear better, more insight. Or maybe there is a God, and God is listening to you when you do this and like helping you fulfill your dreams. I don't know what it is, but it works." And so here I am. I wake up one day and I'm got a hangover, and I'm not happy. So I said, "What do I have to lose?" And I download an app called Headspace, and I start with a 5-minute meditation with a hangover. Well, it just so happens that over time, the alcohol use starts to really curb, the pills fall off, and I'm like, whoa, I'm happy. I'm like healthier and I'm making a lot of money now. I'm going to keep doing this.
And you have a clear mind to do it.
I have a clear mind. And so I've been meditating avidly almost every single day. There's days where I can miss, but I feel like trash if I do. But I meditate every day, and the kind of meditations that I do will typically be some very, very vivid visualization. I think that you can't walk through a door you've never seen.
Correct.
And you don't have to see it in real life. You have to see it in your mind.
Your mind's eye is blind anyways. It doesn't know the difference between reality.
It doesn't.
If it's your eyes are open or not.
Yeah. And like everything that we have in the physical world, somebody had an idea and then built it. So everything's been created in the mind.
Hence the famous Solomon quote, which is "There's nothing new beneath the sun," right?
Yeah. Everything exists, right? And so, that to me is one of the most powerful techniques, is like granular visualization, to the point where I can visualize and I see what environment I'm in. I can feel how it makes me feel.
And feeling is the most important guiding force to take you to where you're trying to go as well.
Why do you think that is?
Because the process of manifestation goes something like this. We have about 60,000 thoughts per day, and they're fleeting. The ones that we have the strongest feelings for are the ones that we latch onto. Those are usually ones that a lot of impoverished people replay in their mind. I don't have enough money. I don't know how to do this. I don't know. And it's those feelings that kind of keep you or catapult you to where you're going.
Right.
You need massive action.
Yep.
And as a result of that, you in fact have manifested what you were feeling all along.
Right. And I agree. There's also, on a scientific level, we are big conductors of electromagnetic frequency. And there are two places in the body which generate the most amount of EMF, or electromagnetic frequency, or radiation in our body. And that's the brain and the heart.
I was about to say third eye and your heart chakra or something.
Right here. And they emit a massive amount of EMF from your body. Well, that electromagnetic frequency is of a quality, right? If it is at a higher frequency, so moving a little faster, an elevated emotion. If you're having elevated thoughts and elevated emotions, you're now emitting an elevated vibration. And it just so happens that scientifically, things of like vibrational accord meet.
And higher frequencies of vibration or higher levels of energy always nullify lower levels of energy.
They do.
You can't have a depressed person make the happy people in the room sad.
Yeah.
It's going to go the other way around.
Very likely, right? And so here I am, just attracting and finding myself in situations and opportunities that match the way I'm feeling and thinking. And this has been the story of my life since.
Entrepreneurship is really sexy today, especially with Instagram and all the social media platforms. Everybody wants to get into business for themselves. I have a 19-year-old in the house that is an aspiring everything: real estate, e-commerce, day trading, and hasn't started doing anything just yet, but wants to do it all.
Yep.
What are some of the crucial skills or qualities young entrepreneurs need to get through these uncertain times that we have right now? But it's okay. All you need to do is take the first step. A metaphor that I live by is you need to be intentional. And the reason for that is a rudder, even with a sail, is going to take you nowhere. Right? Or a boat without a rudder, and only a sail is going to take you nowhere. Right. And that's why the metaphor that you used, you can drive from New York to California with your headlights on in the middle of the night, and all you need is that 20 feet distance. As long as you have an idea on where you're going, it doesn't matter what roads you take and how you're going to get there.
For real.
And I think that's what's important. And guys, today we live in a world where you can create any business that you want by essentially becoming the expert in the field. I jokingly say this: I made a mistake and clicked on to follow you, and I was inundated on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube with an incredible new tidbit of knowledge and advice that I'm learning about your space and other things in real estate as well too. I want to elaborate on the importance of branding and marketing, specifically in real estate, and why it's important for people to see the authenticity of who you are, the challenges that you face, and share your triumphs and your successes
And your losses.
and your losses.
You know, I think that the world is noisy. It's a noisy world, right? All kinds of things vying for your attention. And it's something that I've learned from listening to Tupac, because I was a big Tupac fan growing up.
I'm a Tupac fan
Yeah.
too.
And
Tupac over Biggie, right?
I mean, Biggie's great, but of course,
Tupac,
right? Yeah. The thing that I saw, and what he talked about, and what others have, Shakespeare included, is to be true to yourself, right? Well, why? What does being true to oneself really do? Well, when you are authentically who you are now magnetic to people, because people don't see that a lot. They don't see somebody who is just themselves, unabashedly, right?
No, they resonate with your energy. Right?
They like it.
Your
They're like,
energy
wow.
shows up before you even show up.
Yeah, I want to be like that person.
Yeah.
I want to be able to say whatever I want to think, or say whatever I think. I want to be able to just be happy being me, right? How do I do that? Well, you got to be happy being you, right? One of the first things that I knew that people were going to say to me when I started, being on the internet was, "Oh, wow, look at this fat guy," right? So I was like, well, you know what? So they're going to call me fat? Okay, cool. Why don't I just take it from them?
Yeah.
Why don't I take that power away from them, right?
You just pulled it
so
right out.
one of my first videos that I ever did was me, the Wholesale Genie, where I, branded myself as that blue dude, and I'm dancing on my table with no shirt on. I'm really overweight at the time.
Oh, I've seen it.
Right? I'm like 240 pounds. I'm 180 today, right? So like that's 60 pounds heavier than I am right now. And it was a hit.
Yeah.
Everybody loved it. And yeah, people called me fat.
Who cares?
But who cares? More people loved it. And so being myself, being that entertaining yet educated person that can help you get financial freedom and laugh at the same time, in my world, who wouldn't want to do that? Who wouldn't want to hang out with that? Who wouldn't want to be in a community where that's the energy?
I'm telling you, and this is what the show is really all about. If you want to do me a favor, and if you're enjoying the show, all you need to do is just tell a friend, tag, like, subscribe, follow Jamil, because he's really sharing with us all these pearls of wisdom that I only wish that every week I could share with my audience as well too. We're coming to the end of our show here, and I want to ask you what the role of mentorship has played in your journey. Do you have any mentors or influences that have significantly shaped who you are today?
Yeah, of course. So I pay for mentorship. I mean, one of my mentors is Joe Dispenza, right? And he's not cheap. He's not cheap. It's very costly, in fact. Not crazy, but it's worth every penny, right? So I'm happy to write those checks. I'm happy to do it because I understand it's a value exchange. I'm getting so much for the couple thousand or a few $1,000s that I pay to go to an event. I'm being well exchanged for that, right? So I feel like I'm getting 10 or 100 times what I'm paying, and so that's I consider Joe one of my mentors. Beyond him, I love Grant, right? We're not the same in many ways. But
by the way, that is the same criticism many people say about Grant. He's incredible, but he's just in a different stratosphere.
He's himself as well, right? Grant. What I love about Grant is Grant's who he is all the time. He's not a fake, right?
No, yeah.
I've seen him around his family, and the guy's a stand-up husband and a stand-up dad.
Yeah.
Like he loves his family. Without, he's just a great dude in his family life. But he taught me something. And it's just, I'm really grateful that him and I have become friends, and I don't have to actually write him checks to get the help anymore.
He was on your show, right?
Yeah, he was on our show, and I can reach out to the team, and I was on his podcast, and it's cool. He's great. But he taught me how to think big. And it's that's very difficult to do, because when you think about it, the way you think is your fishbowl. And you know how fish are. A fish will only grow as big as its bowl. If its bowl's too small, it's going to stay small. If its bowl gets big, fish gets bigger, right? You put a fish in a pond and now it becomes a koi, right? The goldfish in the pond become a koi fish. Well, why? Why does that happen? Well, in human world, in our world, if your mind box is, I'm going to retire with $1 million, and you keep that in your mind, you can get there.
And that's as
much as you're going to be able to go. Yeah. Well, in 2008, Grant loses everything the same way I lost everything. What did I have as a goal after that? I said, I need to make my $12 million back. That's what I wanted to do. So in 2022, I'm sitting with Grant, and I'm like, yeah, I made my 12 million back plus some. And that's not even including the value of the company, my shares or nothing. This is just cash. Right? I'm like, okay, I got my 12 mil. Grant, how much you got? He said, well, in 2008, I didn't have this dumbass idea to make $12 million. I said $1 billion. Oh. Do you have it? Yeah. Holy crap. You're kidding me? No, so we had the same amount of time, and I consider myself maybe a little smarter than Grant. I'm not, I don't know. Well, if he watches this, he's going to be like, yeah, right, buddy. But, I do have a high level of intelligence, right? So either way, he's either a little smarter than me or I'm a little smarter than him, whatever it is. But we are in the same business doing the same things. And how did he get to $1 billion and I get to my $12 million range, right? Well, because that's my target. I made my fishbowl so big, so I only got so big.
So as we come to finalize the show and wrap this up, this is essentially a real estate show. Yes. So I have to ask you, we've had a turbulent time over the last year.
Yes.
Where do you see our real estate market going in the next year, going into 2024? And more importantly, do you anticipate that our market's going to crash?
Well, I think that you need a lot of inventory for something to crash. And I think there's a lot of people with very cheap debt on their houses. They're not going to give up.
Correct.
And so, no, I don't think that we have a threat to crash the market because there's too much equity in the market. There's way too much cheap debt out there for it to happen. So I don't believe that we're going to head for a crash. I do think, though, that things are slowing down again because once we got to 8%, the phone stopped ringing. Mm-hmm. And, that creates opportunities for buyers. And so...
Especially if you're sitting on cash.
100%. Like I purchased a house in Phoenix, Arizona on my street that was appraised at $1.8 million for $950,000.
Unbelievable.
Right. And so you're going to find opportunities. Now would be the time. In the next, I wouldn't even say today now. I mean, within the next 30, 60, 90 days that you, especially going into the holiday season, it gets so slow in real estate just naturally. So that if you can get in and really negotiate well, you'll be able to make a killing.
On that note, we sadly have to come to the end of our show. What you need to do is you need to go on Amazon right now and go out and buy the book, How to Wholesale Real Estate by Jamil Damji. Follow his contact by just simply putting his name in. Jamil, Jamildamji on Instagram, YouTube. Plus, tune into A&E's Triple Digit Flip. And I'm honored and I thank you for being on the show. And
Absolutely.
I invite you to come back anytime that you want.
Thank you so much.
I hope this added a lot of value for all the listeners and the viewers that are watching the show. It's your host, Dawood Bedrosian. You can always catch me on any one of my social media platforms. That's LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram by simply typing in my name. And of course, like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that we can have our community grow and have great guests like Jamil on the show.